everybody! Today is June 18th, the same day that I'm recording this is the same day that I'm uploading it, and it is my birthday. I turned 30 years old today, and while that's a special birthday to anybody, it's a huge milestone for me personally because, long story short, due to my health issues, I wasn't even supposed to make it to 30, so I have a lot of reasons to be celebrating today. In honor of my 30th birthday, I thought it would be fun to do a video about some goth facts. So I've decided that this video is going to be 30 goth facts for my 30th birthday. The only couple of quick disclaimers I have before I get too far in is, one, please understand, with this amount of goth facts, some of them will not be facts per se. They're going to be more like little pieces of information that I think might be useful or fun to know. I've put as many facts in as I can possibly come up with, and it took me about a month of research to come up with as many as I do have on my list. So please be nice, please be courteous about the fact that they're not all technically facts. And the other quick disclaimer is that I realize that some of these facts are going to be obvious to a lot of you. Please understand that the target audience of this video is people who are brand new to the goth subculture and don't know a whole lot about it yet. So what's obvious to you isn't obvious to them. So please, for my birthday, be kind to me and to one another in the comments. So let's get into it. The first fact is that the term goth pertains to both the sound of a band's music and or the era in which the band came about. There's a lot of argument online about whether goth music has to do with whether or not it was from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, or whether it has to do with the sound. Personally, I think it can be either or both, but to each their own. Second fact, the more extreme goth fashion, makeup, and hairstyles were predominantly influenced by Susie Sue, Robert Smith, Andy Sexgang, and many other goth band members from the 80s. What I'm talking about is people with eye makeup similar to mine, the eyebrows that are very, very angular, a lot of black clothing, black hair that's kind of spiked up and really fluffy and overly teased, and that style is generally referred to as trad goth, meaning traditional goth back to its roots. Number 3, there are countless alternative subcultures these days, but the goth subculture itself is usually the only one that listens to and builds its lifestyle around goth rock. I'm sure by now, if you've done any of your own research, you've seen that there's goth, and then there's cyber goth. Sometimes I hear it called cyberpunk and sometimes cyber goth. It just depends on who you talk to. Pastel goth, new goth, all of that. Generally speaking, those little branches are more a fashion style than they are the actual gothic lifestyle. Goth itself, just called goth and nothing else, is the group of people who listen to goth music and build a lot of their lifestyles around goth bands and goth music, whereas the other ones kind of use the word as a blanket term for anything kind of dark. Number 4. The goth scene didn't take hold solely because of a few bands. There was a nightclub in the UK called the Bat Cave, and that's kind of where the entire movement began. There's actually a really good BBC documentary here on YouTube that you can watch. All you have to do really is type in BBC Bat Cave documentary to find it. And it's very informative. It explains how a lot of the original goth bands would play in this club, either live or their songs were played. And it kind of started this whole movement of people who wanted to emulate their favorite band members and take on some of that trad goth appearance, and it's really, really cool. You'll see a lot of people even today walking around with Bat Cave patches on their jackets, and rightly so, because we wouldn't really have the movement without that place. Number 5. The term gothic means dark, grandiose, and pretentious, and although that may sound a little bit bleak and a little bit negative, the entire point of the goth movement, besides the music itself, is finding beauty in darkness, finding the beauty and the light and the positivity in things that most people would find very negative and very bleak. And that really does coincide with that ancient term Gothic, because in a very real way, finding beauty in the darker parts of life does give you this very dark, grandiose, almost pretentious state of mind about the world, and there's honestly nothing wrong with that at all. Number 6. Most of the bands who were labeled as goth were not happy about it. Actually, almost all of the bands that were referred to as goth bands back when the movement first started were not happy about it at all. They never have referred to themselves as goth bands. The Gothic subculture decided to label them such, and although you have to kind of look up interviews from each individual band member to really understand their specific reasons why they don't like it, overall, the general reasoning that I've gathered that they don't really like it is because that term goth or gothic does carry such a negative connotation, both in its original meaning and its more modern meaning, because a lot of people, unfortunately, still don't really understand goth people, so I can understand why it's not something a lot of them want to associate themselves with. But on the flip side of that, I kind of wish more of them were open to it, because as big a following as a lot of these bands have, like The Cure, for example, they could really help the movement a lot by helping stop the spread of misinformation about what goth is. Number 7, May 22nd was chosen as World Goth Day because on May 22nd, 2009, the BBC aired a musical subculture weekend with a focus on goth rock. This special that showcased goth rock really revived the movement. It hadn't died, but it had calmed down a lot by that point, and that special really started this huge revival of people falling in love with the subculture and with the music. So we all just decided that was a good day to make World Goth Day and turn it into something really happy and positive. Again, finding that positivity in the darker things. Number 8. On May 6th, Disney used to host Bats Day in Disneyland until 2018. Although the official Bats Day at Disneyland no longer exists, I'm not really sure why. I tried to research and I couldn't really find an exact reason, because you know Disney, they're so vague and they're so secretive about everything. But don't dismay. Goth people still meet up at Disneyland on that day every year and kind of make it their own Disney Bats Day. And as far as I've seen, Disneyland doesn't seem to really mind it. So don't worry, even though the pop-up shops they would have before for goth people don't show up, you're still allowed to go there looking all spooky and meet up with all of your goth family. Number 9. The reason that people in the goth and alternative communities have better protections from the law against hate-related crimes is because of Sophie Lancaster. If you've never heard of Sophie Lancaster, I strongly encourage you to please look up her story. It is incredibly important to the alternative and goth movements, because on August 24th, 2007, Sophie Lancaster and her boyfriend had been out, and they were both very alternative. They looked very goth for the time, that like early 2000s style goth. And as they were walking home, I believe, a bunch of people jumped them and beat them to a point that Sophie actually died from her wounds. It's extremely sad, but the positive side of it, the kind of light at the end of the tunnel, is the fact that her parents decided to take her death and turn it into a reason to make stronger protections against hate crimes for alternative and goth people, because they strongly believed that she was killed because of the way that she looked. And up until that point, there weren't really specific protections in place for us. We didn't really get covered by that discrimination umbrella, so it was really hard to get labeled as a hate crime. The guys who killed her are still in jail, I believe, but I think they're constantly trying to get parole and everything, and hopefully they don't, at least for a long time, because this girl did not deserve to die. If you want to support the foundation, you can do so on its official website. Illamasqua also has a Sophie category in their shop, and some of the proceeds of those products go to the Sophie Lancaster Foundation. That brings me into number 10. Posable releases a Goths for Sophie calendar each year, and it's absolutely wonderful. This is not some fancy, professionally done calendar. They do a lot of crowdfunding to finance this calendar, and every goth model in it is someone from social media, and it's just amazing seeing 12 people a year at least come together for a cause like this. Number 11. Despite what movies and TV may have led the general public to believe, the aesthetic appearance and music within the goth community does not affect their personalities. Even today, in 2019, there are still loads and loads of people in real life and online who give me dirty looks, who say nasty things to me, and not just me, to everyone in the subculture, because they still don't understand that looking like this doesn't mean that you're depressed, it doesn't mean that you're angry, it doesn't mean that you're dangerous or nasty or evil or any of that stuff. And as much as I know it's tempting to just freak out and lunge at the person and yell at them, remember that doesn't really solve any problems, it just creates more arguments and more issues. I suggest if someone has an issue with you like that you sit down and have an educational dialogue with them where you explain to them that no, those things are harmful stereotypes and none of them are true. Number 12. The Columbine shooters were not goth. It makes me crazy, again, that still a lot of people think they were goth because of the news outlets back then. Unfortunately, in a rush to be the first news companies, corporations, what have you, to release the story, they didn't all get their facts straight. They didn't fact check at all. They didn't make sure that anything they were saying was correct. And they basically labeled the shooters as goth just because they listened to Marilyn Manson, which isn't even goth to begin with, it's industrial rock, and because they had black trench coats on at the time of the shooting. Unfortunately, around this time, it got even worse for the gothic subculture because people who were not goth and didn't know anyone who was goth in their own lives saw this and started getting really scared that anybody who was listening to music like that was going to do something similar, and it is really mind-blowing to me. Number 13, as I just mentioned, Marilyn Manson is not goth. He is industrial rock. There's nothing wrong with Marilyn Manson. I happen to enjoy his music. You don't have to though, but his music is not goth. Listening to Marilyn Manson does not make you goth, and it doesn't mean that you enjoy goth music. However, in terms of Marilyn himself, I don't know if he considers himself goth or not. That's something I need to look into. Goths get annoyed over being asked about The Crow because after the movie gained popularity, the Eric Draven image became a goth stereotype. That movie definitely has a lot of gothic undertones to it, in theme, in setting, in everything, the look of it, all of it. And it's a beautiful movie and I love it. It's very, very dear to my heart. I watch it every year. And the reason a lot of goth people get annoyed if you say something like, oh, you're goth, so you like The Crow, or they expect you to do Crow makeup or something, is because once the movie gained kind of a cult following, a lot of people just kind of started defaulting to Eric Draven's makeup look, and it got kind of annoying because a lot of goths pride themselves on being very individual and unique in their style, and then seeing all these little cookie cutter goths running around with that Crow makeup on kind of annoyed them and ruined it for a lot of people, unfortunately. Goth has a lot of issues within its subculture, a lot of issues that we still need to iron out. There is a lot of elitism. Elitism is when someone decides that they are more goth than you are because they feel they have more knowledge of it than you. They usually end up trying to grill you on information. I've personally not come across any elitists in my life. I do believe that a vast majority of them are online and not in real life because online you can hide behind that veil of anonymity. There's also a lot of racism, which is completely disgusting because At the heart of it, goth is about the love of the music, the love of the bands that started the movement. It's not about the look. The look is this fun little perk that happens to come with, and people just happen to like to make themselves look kind of dead. So a bunch of people got in their head that if you're not really pale, you're not goth. What are black people supposed to do about that? It's gross. No, your skin color has nothing to do with how goth you are. There's also a lot of ageism. I have seen, again, mostly online more than anything, a lot of people who are a little bit older in the subculture get really annoyed the second they hear a younger person online say that they're goth and completely dismiss them without even listening to a single word they have to say, and that's not right. Listen to the kid. If they're wrong, politely correct them and educate them. If they're right, hey, look, someone who's as smart as you. Yay. Someone you have to talk to. Someone with common ground. Number 16. There are over 20 goth music festivals worldwide. The most popular of these Gothic music festivals are Wave Gothic Treffen and Mara Luna, although there are several more, and it is not difficult to find them after looking them up on Google. It looks really fun. I have it on my bucket list to make at least a couple of them in my lifetime, just need the money for it. And they're absolutely amazing. It's a wonderful way to meet other goth people from around the world and just feel included and accepted, because it's just this huge group of people just like you. They do not only play goth music, many goth bands no longer play, so don't get confused if you go there and assume that everything that they're playing is goth, because it generally is not anymore. Number 17. The website goth.net used to be the #1 place to find goth club nights and events. This is an old website. It used to be a really wonderful place for goth people to find each other and find goth events going on in their towns, because you would just look up your city and it would show you a list of anything going on around you. Unfortunately, it kind of died after a while, but it has been attempting to make a revival in recent years. But it's mostly forum-based now, I've noticed. However, if you try to look up something simple like goth websites that show goth events near me or something like that, I have found other websites that took inspiration from goth.net, and you just have to do a little more work to find stuff in your area now, unfortunately. Number 18. The reason so many people in the subculture get frustrated over the amount of big goth brands is the commercialization and lack of respect for DIY in the goth subculture. In the beginning, obviously, gothic shops did not exist. Online didn't really exist to begin with, and there weren't many standalone shops. I mean, by the 90s, they were still few and far between. So for the most part, you had to just get a black shirt and a black skirt or pants or something and DIY it to look how you wanted. You had to iron on or sew on your own patches, make and pin on your own pins. You had to completely customize all of your goth outfits to look the way you wanted them to. And obviously, we're very privileged today. We have gothic shops everywhere online. You can't miss them. It's so accessible and it's so easy to find. And that's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with buying a goth outfit, but I do think the commercialization of the goth subculture has harmed that past a little bit. It's causing people to forget the fact that people had to DIY. You don't necessarily have to be someone who DIYs your own goth outfits, but you should respect the fact that that's the root of the look. Number 19, vampfangs.com has a list of the main goth clubs in America, and vamp.com is the international version of it. These are those websites that I kind of said take inspiration from goth.net. It's not quite as precise as goth.net was, but it still tells you at least where the club nights are in each main city. Unfortunately, I can't find anything that says every city, just the big ones in each state or each country. Number 20, Gothic Beauty Magazine, Gothic and Amazing, and World of Goth are three different goth-centered publications. As far as I've seen, they cover the aesthetic of goth, the lifestyle, and the music, which is really, really cool. And they are not the only ones. There's plenty of goth magazines out there. I suggest getting some subscriptions if you're new to the goth subculture because they can teach you a lot. Number 21, look up Aurelio Voltaire on YouTube. He has an entire series on his channel called Gothic Homemaking where he utilizes his music, his comedy, and his own personal New York apartment to teach you how to deck out your home in the Gothic style and do it cheaply and really, really beautifully. It's so cool. He shows you how to find things in your everyday life in like thrift shops or around your house and customize them to look a little bit more goth. It's so much fun. Number 22. Goth is not dead. There are still a lot of us online. Unfortunately, yes, it has calmed down quite a bit. You don't see as many walking around in real life, but it isn't dead. There's a ton of us online. You can find us on forums, on YouTube, on Instagram, everywhere. Just reach out and try to talk to some of us. A lot of us are really friendly. We're more than happy to talk to you if we have the time. And like I mentioned before, there's a lot of those German music festivals and European music festivals. Go to a few and you will see it's far from being dead. Number 23. Riri Phillips, It's Black Friday, Toxic Tea, and Of Herbs and Altars are a few big goth YouTubers who teach you how to DIY your own goth outfits. So if that is something that you're interested in, you can look them up, and I believe that It's Black Friday and Toxic Tears both have playlists on their channels about DIY. Verbs and Altars does not, but all you have to do is put their name in the title bar and write DIY and it pops up immediately. Number 24. Natasha Scharf has a small collection of books on the Gothic subculture. They're really, really good and really informative. She makes them so beautiful. They are hardcover books. They're very big. They have a lot of wonderful information about how the movement started and where it's gone since. And she has a lot of gorgeous pictures and interviews from people in the subculture. So if you're someone who enjoys reading, I suggest picking up some of her books. Number 25. There's still, unfortunately, a lot of misinformation about the goth subculture. And although the internet helps somewhat by bringing us together and allowing us to have a platform like YouTube where we can discuss what goth is and what goth isn't, the internet can also make the problem a whole lot worse because anyone can make a website now. They can make it really easily and really cheaply, if not freely. And as long as you're someone who can speak eloquently and persuade people to follow your opinion, you can get them to believe just about anything. So there's unfortunately a lot of really horrible websites that pop up when you're looking up information about goth. Just try your best to ignore them. Number 26. The goth community is so diverse and varied that there is no real way to define it. This is the reason why a lot of goth YouTubers refuse to make a video about what goth is, because there is no exact definition of it. We all know that for the most part it surrounds a love of the music, and everything beyond that point is just everyone's own interpretation. Each individual person embraces what goth is in their own unique way, and no two people will ever have the exact same definition. Number 27. The Lady of Manners has a page on her website, Gothic Charm School, which is dedicated to helping goths who are victims of bullying. I actually love her. I get a nice giggle out of her website here and there, and she's also very informative. She's almost kind of like a Dear Abby type thing for goth people, and it helps so much if you're someone who has been bullied for being goth to look at her page about people who are bullied, because she writes the victim's initial email to her and then she writes her response, and the things she says are so helpful and so kind. She doesn't just say like, oh, just ignore them or tell the teacher or something. She gives real good advice. Number 28. You can be goth and buy clothes from Hot Topic and Killstar. Being goth has nothing to do with a specific brand or DIYing. You're no less goth if you buy something from Killstar because you think it looks beautiful. You're no less goth if you buy something from Hot Topic because it's the only thing you can afford or the only thing that's accessible to you. Hey guys, sorry about the weird quality right now, as in like how shaky the camera is. And sorry about the fact that I look completely different for the end of this video, but something really, really weird happened yesterday. I had completely finished filming the video. I even looked back on my camera at it and everything was there, and as soon as I went and started editing it, the last two entire points had just vanished completely, and I was experiencing a lot of paranormal activity yesterday and the day before, which I'm going to be explaining in my video following this one. So I'm very sorry about the quality of the remaining 2 points of this video, but I'm going to just kind of try to blast through them. Number 29, there are new goth bands popping up all the time. Bandcamp is an absolutely wonderful resource for you if you want to look for new sounds. I know that even though we love the goth music sound in general and we love older goth bands, some of us just aren't into only listening to old music. Some of us want something new, and there's nothing wrong with that. So look up goth bands on Bandcamp, and when in doubt, check out people's YouTube videos and have a listen. Number 30. Always remember, we are a family. We are a family who loves and supports each other at our very core. We might fight sometimes, we might disagree, we might say things that we regret. But at the end of the day, sometimes we're all each other has, and we do truly love one another. And if you ever need any help, if you're just curious about getting into goth, or you just need help in general, please remember my inbox is always open on Instagram. You're welcome to pop by anytime, and I will get back to you as soon as I'm able to. Until next time, do something that makes you happy today, no matter what anyone else thinks about it, and I will see all of you again very soon.